The city had not yet awakened when the first streaks of pale light spilled through the fog. The street still glistened with the memory of last night's rain, small puddles catching pieces of dawn and scattering them like broken glass. The lamps along the main road flickered one last time before surrendering to morning. Somewhere in the distance, a lonely horn echoed, the sound of a bus beginning its journey while the rest of the world still slept. Between two aging buildings, a narrow lane hid itself in the gray quiet. Damp walls carried the smell of old bricks and forgotten stories. From far away came faint traces of life, a car door closing, a kettle whistling, a stray dog barking at a passing shadow. But here silence ruled. A man stepped into that silence. His shoes pressed softly against the wet concrete, each step echoing like a quiet confession. His hands were cuffed, wrists red where the steel met his skin. Yet his face was calm, not proud, not broken, just still. Two police officers flanked him on either side, their uniforms heavy with the weight of duty rather than power. They didn't speak. Words felt unnecessary here, as if even sound would disturb something sacred in the air. Behind them, an apartment door hung open. It creaked gently in the wind, like an old man's sigh. Curtains fluttered like tired souls, dust danced through the light, and a photograph on the wall trembled before settling again. The man turned his head, his eyes finding that door, the doorway that had once held laughter, arguments, love, and loss. Everything that had made him who he was lived behind that door, now left ajar for ghosts to wander. As the officers led him forward, the city began to awaken. A bicycle bell rang in the distance. A mother called her child's name from a balcony. The world was returning to motion, yet for him, time seemed to slow. Every breath stretched longer, every sound sharper. They stopped beside a waiting police car. The older officer opened the door and gestured silently. The man hesitated for a heartbeat. The wind brushed against his face, carrying the scent of wet soil and cold iron. He inhaled deeply, as if trying to memorize this last breath of freedom. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded and stepped inside. The door closed with a click that sounded louder than thunder. Inside, the air was thick. The hum of the engine filled the silence, a constant low murmur that seemed to sync with the man's heartbeat. Through the window, the city began to drift past, slow, like an old film playing in reverse. He saw a woman sweeping the sidewalk in front of her small shop. A group of children in worn uniforms ran across the street, laughing, pushing, living. A fruit vendor stacked oranges into perfect pyramids under a striped umbrella. Each scene passed like fragments of a life he no longer belonged to. His reflection on the glass merged with theirs, forming a ghost, a silent witness among the living. He remembered the cafe near the corner, the one with blue chairs and a leaky ceiling. He used to sit there for hours, pretending to read the newspaper, pretending to belong. He remembered the bridge at the edge of the city, where promises had been made under flickering streetlights that no longer worked. And then, he remembered the alleyway, the screams, the chaos, the silence that followed. Every memory drifted by like smoke, visible for a moment, then gone. The younger officer glanced at him through the rearview mirror. Their eyes met. For a split second, the officer thought he saw something strange, not defiance, not guilt, but peace. The kind of peace that doesn't come from winning, but from finally understanding what cannot be undone. The car turned onto a wider road. Sunlight began to spill across the asphalt, golden and gentle. The city was now fully awake. Horns, footsteps, shouts, the living rhythm of an ordinary day. But inside the car, it was still. The man leaned his head against the cold glass, feeling the vibration of the road beneath him. His eyelids fluttered shut. For the first time in years, he didn't see chaos behind them, only light. Somewhere in the distance, church bells began to ring. Not loud, not mournful, just steady, like a heartbeat. With each toll, something inside him loosened, like a knot slowly untying. He whispered something under his breath, words too soft to catch. Maybe a prayer, maybe a confession, maybe both. The younger officer turned the radio knob slightly. A voice came through. A morning host laughing, a song starting, then fading as he switched it off again. The world outside was too alive to understand the silence inside the car. They passed the river, the same one that had once carried his childhood dreams in paper boats. He remembered standing on its bank, watching the water carry everything away. Letters, leaves, regrets. He thought of that now and smiled faintly. Life had always been about letting go. He just hadn't known how to do it until it was too late. Minutes turned to miles. The city began to fade into open land, fields stretching under the soft warmth of the sun, birds gliding lazily over telephone wires. The car finally slowed near a small station. Metal gates gleamed in the light. Paperwork was exchanged, pens scratched against forms, and yet the man didn't move. He sat still, his eyes fixed on the horizon. When the door opened, sunlight poured inside, flooding the car like water filling a dark room. He blinked against it, momentarily blinded. Then he stepped out, 1 foot at a time. For a moment, the world seemed too wide. The officers guided him through the gate. Beyond it, there was no crowd, no noise, just open space and the faint hum of wind moving through tall grass. The man paused halfway, turning once more to look back. Not at the officers, not at the car, but at the long, winding road behind him. Every step, every mistake, every silence had led him here. Maybe truth wasn't my punishment, he murmured quietly. Maybe it was my peace. The older officer looked at him but said nothing. He didn't need to. Some truths were too heavy for words. The man smiled, not out of joy, not sorrow, but acceptance. He walked forward. The sound of his footsteps softened until it vanished. The sunlight wrapped around him completely, dissolving his shadow into brightness. The frame lingered for a moment, the world suspended between silence and light, before fading to white. And then, the narrator's voice returned, calm and certain. We all live behind doors that hold both laughter and regret. Some of us close them gently. Others leave them open, hoping the wind might carry our guilt away. But in the end, truth finds everyone, not to punish, but to remind us that peace was never somewhere far away. It was always waiting.